Okay. Yes? Yes, I think it's working. Hello! Welcome in, everyone. Who do I see in the chat right now? I see Aku, Lone Wolf, Drew, Salty, Daria, and Carmelian. Welcome in, everyone. Hello. Welcome to the stream. Sorry if I sound really tired. I don't have a good excuse this time. I'm just really tired. But hello, welcome in, everyone. Today, like it says on the title and like how we've been advertising a little bit, today we are going to be learning about emphasis, the principle of design. So we're going to be going through what emphasis is. Emphasis, unlike the other two, emphasis is it's easier. It's easier to teach compared to the others. Oh, I should have popped out the chat. Hang on, let me do that. Yeah, unlike the others, emphasis is fairly simple to teach, so I have a better handle on how I'm gonna teach this one. But yeah, before we get going though, is my mic on? Double checking. Yeah, we're good. Before we get started though, let's talk a bit about the channel and the stream, because if you did not know, our growing community is filled with tons of art nerds, and we art nerds have to stick together. So if you're an art nerd too, be sure to check out the links to our social media in the description below, and check out our website for our class offerings where you can get critique, guidance, and encouragement from our instructors, because we're not just a YouTube channel, we are an art school too. So if you'd like to support us so we can keep making free content, consider supporting us on Patreon for as little as $2 per month, where you can get access to tons of perks like my working files, critique sessions, and a huge discount on our classes that have a limited amount of spots. So be sure to check those out before they are gone. All right, let me check this. Yes, we can hear. Okay, sick. Like every time, because at the end of every stream I turn off my mic just in case. So glad you can hear me. But yeah, we're gonna be talking a bit about emphasis, because there's a lot of... It's actually not too long. Emphasis itself is not too long. But I do like emphasis. So we should start by talking about what it is. I'm rusty. I don't know why I'm so rusty. I do this every week. What is emphasis? I'm a little out of it. Maybe that's it. So let's start by talking about what emphasis actually is. So what is emphasis? Emphasis is a principle of art. Actually, it's called an element. Yeah, no, it's a principle of design that refers to the use of visual... That doesn't look like a V. Visual elements. Hello, Drew. Draw attention to a certain area. So emphasis is a principle of design that refers to the use of visual elements to draw attention to a certain area. Right, so that's taken pretty well straight from Google. So how you'd simplify that down, right, is emphasis is the use of your elements and principles of design to make sure that the viewer's eyes draw to a very specific point on a piece, right? So say if you have like this bright light in the middle of a dark scene, that bright light is going to be emphasized because, you know, it's the same thing as like having a lighthouse in the middle of the night on an ocean, right? Our eyes are going to go straight to that lighthouse because it's nice and bright against everything. So it's emphasized against that dark background. Hello to everyone. Hi. Hello Aku and hello Arcade Cubes. Glad to have y'all in. Hope y'all are doing well. Am I late? No, we literally just started. But yeah, so the principle of design that refers to the use of visual elements to draw attention to a certain area. So this often deals with the use of contrast to create focal point. All right, so kind of like how I mentioned, often emphasis uses contrast to create focal points, right? So it utilizes we're gonna talk about that, so let's not talk about it just yet. But often emphasis uses contrast to create focal points. And what is a focal point? We've definitely talked about that before, but let's talk about it again. So focal point, let's actually write that in red. So focal point, wow, focal point. Yeah, sorry if I'm kind of out of it. So a focal point is an area or areas where your eyes draw to first. And structure. And a main interest. To a piece. Right, so a focal point is an area or areas where your eyes will draw to first, right? So it adds structure and main interest and a main interest to a piece, right? Often if you see an art piece, it doesn't have a focal point, it can feel a little bit too busy, it can feel a little bit lost, right? If everything feels very, very monotone, or if everything feels too busy, then you don't have a focal point. And it can feel just a little bit off, a little bit strange. So generally we want those focal points in there where your eyes will draw to first, so that your piece has movement, it has organization. That way it feels a little bit stronger in terms of its creation. Right, so we're going to be going over a few different ways that you can utilize emphasis. There's a few simple ways to add emphasis to any piece, right? How to emphasize your focal point, right? Back at it again, I see. Yes, I am, Dakota. Welcome in. We here every week. Actually, I'm not going to be here for the next 2 weeks. I should have said that. So, next week Friday and the week after, I'm not going to be streaming. Because next week Friday is the 24th, and the week after is the 31st. So no, I will be not streaming on Christmas Eve or on New Year's Eve. So we'll be taking a 2-week break after this one. But I'll be back in January. So after this stream, I'm gonna be taking a 2-week break, and then I'll come back after that. Just letting you know. Guess I should have started with that, but we got more in, so I'll say that now. I think we're all out of it. Today's the last day before holiday break. Mine actually, I technically my holiday break started on Tuesday because I handed in my final assignment then. I feel like I'm decompressing. I feel like this past couple weeks has been really crazy for me. But I feel like I've been just decompressing a little bit. So you need a break. Thank you, Carmelia. Yeah, I've been slowly dying. It's just like I don't want to get too into it, but I've been going kind of crazy the past few weeks. For several reasons, both positive and negative. But yeah, it's been like everything has been crunched down in these past 2 weeks. Yes, okay, thank you, Daria. But yeah, we'll be back in January, or I'll be back in January, and then we'll be coming back with, I don't remember what exactly the stream is, but I'll be coming back at that point. Okay. Yours is in 4 more days? Ah, I see. My winter break was extended as well. I don't know what the universities are doing right now. Everyone's going a little mad. Okay, so let's talk about different techniques that we can use to emphasize our focal points. Because really, emphasis, I like to think of emphasis as that one principle that's like always ever present. It's the same as am I talking about those trippy artworks? Sometimes I do like those trippy artworks, but even those ones have like a focal point. It tends to be the ones where there really isn't meant to be a focal point, but then they use their lines and their movement to add emphasis in other ways. But yeah, very similar to like variety and proportion. I feel like emphasis is one of those like ever present principles. At the very same time, I feel like it's one of those ones where you're always using it. It almost feels like a backup plan, or like a thing that helps. It's like a support in a way to all of your artwork, you know? Hi, your videos have helped to get better at art. Thank you, Spirit Ninjas. I'm glad they've been helping you. Um, but yeah, it always feels like emphasis is one of those, like, it's kind of like a, how do I explain this in a way that isn't like a game allegory? um, Regardless, it feels like emphasis is like a support system to everything. So let's talk about ways that we can use it. So let's start with contrast. Contrast. Sorry, I went a bit on a tangent there. So contrast. When referring to contrast, did I spell that right? Yes, I did. This can be used with many opposing things. But is most commonly used with color and value. Wow, value. So that's with complementary colors. I spelled complementary wrong. Complementary or isolated. And then light versus dark values. Okay, so with contrast, when referring to contrast, this can be used with many opposing things, but it's most commonly used with color and value. That does not look like used. I don't know why. What is that S? It is most commonly used with both color and value. So when it comes to color, we're most likely going to be using either complementary or isolated colors. I'll talk about what isolated colors are, and light versus dark values, right? So if you have a majorly dark piece, let's talk about values first. If you have a piece that's like mostly dark with like a spot of light, or vice versa, your eyes will draw to that one spot first. So if you have like a nighttime scene, there's a moon in the sky, that moon's gonna pop out, right? So they're gonna have emphasis on that moon, or like how I mentioned previously, if you have a lighthouse in the middle of the ocean, like a dark ocean, that lighthouse is going to pop out first, right? So we have that with values. Complementary and isolated colors. Complementary colors, I'm pretty sure we know what those are. If we have a color wheel, then it's the things that are on opposite sides of the color wheel, no matter what color wheel you're using, right? So if you're using the RYB color wheels, then that's like red and green are complementary, blue and orange are complementary. If you're using CMY, the contemporary artist palette, then that's, ooh, have I memorized this one yet? I believe it's, oh no, it's red and cyan are complementary. Um, it's like, yeah, blue and yellow are complementary. I think it's orange and, oh no. Anyway, I haven't memorized that one yet. Hello, I'm Basil. Welcome in. Um, but no matter which complementary palettes you're using, or whichever color wheel you're using, you're gonna have complementary isolated colors. Or complementary colors are gonna be something that has very, very high contrast, which is great to use as for emphasis. Which is why a lot of concept artists really like using complementary palettes, whichever version of complementary they like. Or isolated colors. And isolated colors, what that really means is just you have a piece that is majority one or two colors, and then you have an area that is a completely different color. Doesn't necessarily mean it's complementary, doesn't necessarily mean that it's anything like that, but it's just got to be a different color. So say if you've got like a big sea of like blue and slightly greenish or whatever, right? And then you have one area of pink. Pink isn't complementary to either of those colors, but it will stand out because it's a different color, right? And And then we talked about values. So that's pretty well what contrast is. So let's get to the examples. So this piece is, ooh, right in the middle. So this piece is the Battle of San Romano. Who's this by? By, oh no, Paolo Uccello. I can't pronounce that very well. But this is the Battle of San Romano by Paolo Uccello from 1438, painted in 1438 to 1440, somewhere around there. I believe this is the Italian Renaissance, if I remember correctly. The 15th century Italian Renaissance. So immediately, right, there's a very, very clear contrast. So this is using the older palette, so obviously the RYB color wheel. And there's already a very, very clear contrast between, first off, the values, and there's a very clear contrast with the colors, right? This bright red cap stands out instantly against everything, right? So you have this bright red cap right here, which stands out instantly against everything else. There's other spatterings of red, but this is the highest concentration of red that's in there against a majorly green, blue, yellow palette, right? So this is a split complementary color scheme somewhat. If I had to classify it as something, maybe it's a dual split, whatever, something along those lines. But also, if you notice, all the other horses are gray or black or very, very dark, while this is the only figure with a white horse, right? So that white horse, those brighter values stick out against the darker background. Even though the background isn't overall dark, you notice that there's actually a lot of darker values used directly, immediately around this horse to help it stand out. If we kind of minus the background, the floor there. But we have those darker horses and the darker figures that are stand out against like this regal white horse. So we have this nice contrast that leads our eyes directly to this piece. Or that center of focus, which is this man. I don't remember the story behind this piece. I don't think I ever knew. It's like, I guess if I Googled it, I could find it out. It was in my textbook. Anyway, but yeah, so that's contrast. This one shouldn't take too long, by the way. Oh, I should have saved this file. Emphasis isn't too crazy compared to the other principles. This is stream 43. 43 of these bad boys. All right. Next portion of emphasis is isolation. Oops, wrong color. Isolation. We're kind of getting into Gestalt theory. I don't know if we're ever going to have a Gestalt theory video. I think we are at some point, because I'm the only one who's taught it in our studio. If you thought that the elements and principles of design were it, apparently it's not. There's a third one. It's Gestalt theory, which is very confusing. For a lot of people, I love Gestalt theory. It like helped sort out so much, but a lot of people are like, "Whoa, what is this? I don't need another another set of like art principles that I have to know." But I love Gestalt theory, so maybe we'll talk about it one day. So isolation is when you take certain elements and isolate them from a group. Allows eyes to go to the isolated portion first. Can be done with contrast, but is mostly done with done in. This should be in. Done in a literal sense. All right, so isolation is when you take certain elements and isolate them from a group. I shouldn't have said isolate first, but just a second time. So isolation is when you take certain elements and literally move them away from a group, right? It allows your eyes to go to the isolated portion first, right? So it's keeping isolation is keeping something separate from a group that's been already previously established, right? So it can be done with contrast, right? You could have, the what was it called? It's literally here. You could have your isolated colors, so it can be done with contrast, but it is mostly done in a literal sense, right? You're literally moving one thing away from the other things, which is a very, very literal way of doing isolation. Um, you see this a lot with big detail pieces. You see it a lot with crowd pieces. If you've ever seen like an art piece that deals with the crowd, you'll see one person isolated against everything. You'll see those in those like terrible woke posts as well. It's like surround yourself with the people you want to be like, something like that. I don't know. That's a popular one. But you'll see like yourself, like who's supposed to be yourself, and it's like the one thing that stands out against everything. But you're like, you want to be like these people, you gotta hang out with those people or whatever. So you'll see that a lot in there too. Or that really, really kind of popular one where it's like a crowd of like blue sad faces and then one yellow happy face. That's one as well. That's isolation. But yeah, so it can be done with contrast, but it is mostly done in a very literal sense. So the piece that we're going to be talking about is fairly popular. This one is a pretty popular piece. Even if you didn't know what it was called, you might have seen it before. This is Nighthawks by Edward Hopper, painted in 1942. So this piece, again, it's referenced in a lot of film. It's referenced in a lot of books and textbooks and art pieces, or art history books, because it is considered one of the greatest pieces of all time. I do really like this piece. It's not my favorite piece of all time, but I do like this piece. So this piece demonstrates isolation in both the literal and more figurative sense. Where the man in the he's not in a bowler hat. This isn't a slouch either. It's a fedora. So the man in the fedora. Sorry, I have my notes off to the side. It's like it's a bowler hat. It's not a bowler hat. It's a fedora. So where this man in the fedora, is the first person that we see, due to him being isolated from the rest of the group, but he also has this air of loneliness to him. There's another thing that I actually didn't include on here for emphasis, where it has him almost directly in the center, which is somewhere where our eyes will generally go to first, is the center of the piece. Though a lot of master artists will say to avoid that. They'll go like, don't put your things directly in the center. I disagree. It just depends on how you do it. But in this case, it does work very well, where we have this man isolated from all the other figures over here. And he clearly seems very alone in this little diner in the middle of the night, right? So it allows our eyes to be drawn to him first, but it has a lot of isolation shown off in there, which we can see very clearly. Okay. I'm trying to zoom through this. I'm excited to do the last piece. Okay. I'm gonna make this bigger. This can be maybe 5,000. I'm trying to make my canvas sizes smaller, just for these, just so then it's not too crazy and hard to download when I need it later. So that's isolation. Next one is render amount, or level of detail. So this is a very simple technique. Actually, no, it's not very simple. It seems simple on the surface, but it isn't actually that easy to do. So it's basically just has to do with the deals with the amount. Sorry, give me a second. Deals with the amount of detail rendering. At an area of the piece may have. High detail is emphasized. Hello, it's me. Welcome in. On a simple piece and vice versa. Right, so render amount and level of detail have to deal with the amount of detail or rendering that an area of a piece may have. Right, so high detail is emphasized on a simple piece and vice versa. So if you have a very, very simple piece and you have one area with a lot of detail, that one area with a lot of detail is going to stick out. And vice versa. If you have a very, very detailed piece and then you have one area that's very, very simplistic, that one simplistic place is also going to stick out. We've talked about this in like a different, I think we talked about this in an Elements of Principles video. But yeah, so render amount and level of detail deals with the amount of detail or rendering that an area of piece may have. I see this to my students a lot. One thing that a lot of newer artists will think is like the more detail in a piece, the better. That's not true. So if you have the greatest pieces of advice that I ever got was if you have too much detail, then it feels like there's none there at all. And what that means is that if it's too busy, then it really doesn't feel like there's no resting spots for your eyes. There's no contrast. There's nothing there. So if you have too much detail in a piece, it can make it feel like there's nothing at all. Usually it's better to simplify compared to add more detail. Resting spots are the areas on a design where the level of simplicity is heightened. So if you have an overall very detailed thing, you need those areas of simplicity, which are called your resting spots, to make your piece feel balanced, right? So your render amount and level of detail will add that emphasis back into your designs or back into your pieces and whatnot. Finally finished my Sonic fan art. I'll be posting it on the Discord after the stream. That's great, Drew. Glad to see you finished it. It's always good to finish a piece. I wish I could stick to all my pieces the same way. But yeah, so high detail is emphasized on a simple piece and vice versa. So if you have a very simple piece, you have an area with high detail, that high detail area is going to be stuck out, and vice versa. You'll see that a lot with like forests. Like if you have like somebody walking through the jungle is very, very high detail, and the person themselves tends to be very simple. So it's like a nice contrast, nice emphasis on the character. So this technique can interfere with harmony. But will still be emphasized. Right, so you're if you decide to like add an area in a very simplistic piece, this tends to be more so if the simple is the majority and then there's one area of detail. This can interfere with your harmony. So we talked about harmony and unity recently. So this will have to deal with your like stylistic choices. So if you decide to do this technique, there is a chance that you could really mess up your harmony, and that's just by you using too much detail in an area and making it feel like very, very jarring. However, that jarring nature can also be worked to your advantage, because having a very jarring area in a piece can create a very disruptive energy, or it can create this really, you'll see that a lot with analog horror, actually. If you've ever seen like those kind of weird core analog horror images, they tend to have that really jarring area where it's like the majority of the thing is really, really simple, and then you have like this really highly rendered, like just photographed, it's just been juxtaposed against this really simple background. So that tends to be where you would use it, and that's it's a very intentional way of making something look disruptive. But it is something that you just got to be careful with. But it is a really fun thing that you see a lot with more modern horror. So this next piece, to demonstrate this, it's by one of my favorite artists of all time. This, whoopsie doopsie, that's the wrong layer. This is a study for a portrait of PL by Francis Bacon. I'm a really big fan of Francis Bacon. I tried to choose one of his less scary works. Francis Bacon is known, he's somewhat controversial, but he's a oh, this was painted in 1962, by the way, so not too long ago. Francis Bacon was never really part of a movement. He kind of just did it as his own thing. He was known for his really, really jarring portraits. So Francis Bacon was best known for his overall simple compositions with very eerie or almost cubist-like figures. So you kind of see it with this one, right? It very much feels like it's a fever dream. A lot of his work feels like a fever dream. It's like you're looking at it, especially with people. You're looking at it and it's like it's almost right, but it's not really right. So your brain gets kind of confused. You know, the longer that you look at this piece, you kind of realize how much wrong is going on with this figure. But at first glance, it's like, oh yeah, it's a guy and he's sitting there with his leg crossed. But keep looking, and you notice that like half of his torso is gone. Where are his arms? Why is his leg bent like that? Right? And you kind of keep looking at it, and it's like, oh, what am I looking at? Right? That's what a lot of Francis Bacon works. Like, obviously, my favorite piece is by him is pretty freaky, and I'm not gonna include it here. But some people like to say that his paintings are like his brushes were filled with violence. That's one thing that people said. They were very, very strange and interesting looking pieces. This piece looks so cool. I love the colors. Yeah, same. I'm a really big fan of Francis Bacon. His colors were all so jarring. This is one of his like softer pieces. I think it's not as crazy as his others. But yeah, no, I love his work. Sorry, that's enough about Francis Bacon. So yeah, so he was known for his overall, like, if we were to look at the majority of his paintings, they were generally simple in terms of their composition. There wasn't really a crazy amount going on, right? And it wasn't like Monet, where he's like super hyper realistic. Usually there's just a few, like, with Francis Bacon, sometimes it was just a straight up flat color. There was no background at all. Sometimes it was just a few, like this one is a few prisms or like just a few forms in there to kind of help set the scene. There's barely anything there. But our eyes naturally draw first to the face of this figure. It looks like a robot, kind of. Our eyes naturally draw to the face of this figure. What's fascinating is because, like, obviously our eyes would normally draw to the face of a figure anyway. But in this case, the face is so like distorted and it's almost cubist-like in the way that it's been approached. So your eyes automatically draw there because it's an area of much higher detail compared to everything. I can't really zoom in on this one too much, but notice that the face has a lot more detail compared to everything else. So it's like, you know, very, very simple prisms in the background. The pants aren't too crazy. Pants, quote unquote, aren't too crazy. It's just a V-neck shirt, right? Compared to like all these forms and interlocking, like shapes and whatnot in the face, and that's what our eyes draw to first. So that's gonna be, you know, a contrast and emphasis in terms of detail. Reminds me of the Caretaker album art. I love that album. I only listened to the first one because the rest of the songs make me too sad. Um, yeah, the Caretaker. Ugh. That's the artist. The actual. Oh no, the Caretaker. Everywhere at the End of Time. That's the album. I know what you mean though. It's just a Burning Memory is the only piece that I can do. It's a very surrealist one. Yeah, it's a very surrealist album art. Even the other albums. Yeah, beautiful stuff. But yeah, I love The Caretaker. Even though I only listen to one song. Oh goodness. Hello, KRP Ty. Hello, welcome in. Sorry, I can't pronounce your name. Kirp Ty, hello. And hello, Joy. Welcome in. Welcome in to both of you. Okay. So run around level of detail. Alright, last portion. It's Convergence. Convergence. That whole section just turned into an area of me just gushing about how much I love Francis Bacon. I think that's about it. Francis Bacon is so good. Yeah, the album is amazing but very disheartening. Super true. It is very, very like it's a very sad album. For those who don't know, Everywhere at the End of Time, album by The Caretaker, it's an experimental album. It's meant to show the different stages of dementia and put into audio form, where like your memory slowly fades and it all starts to kind of fade out from reality, right? It's very, very, it's a very like disheartening kind of sad album. But in a musical sense, it is genius. It's beautiful. Um, but yeah, all I ever listened to is the first song. I've slept to that song before. It's really nice. Okay, so Convergence deals with a familiar topic because it deals with leading lines. when things converge at a point emphasizes the subject we want to see first. Can use literal or implied lines, right? So convergence deals with leading lines. I'm pretty sure we know what leading lines are. For those of you who don't know, leading lines are lines that are within a composition that tend to lead your eyes somewhere, whether that's a path or actual lines or perspective or anything like that. It's implied or literal lines that will allow your eyes to go in a certain direction to add movement to a piece. Hello, Flexology, welcome in. So when things converge at a point, it emphasizes the subject we want to see first. So if you've ever done one of those one-point perspective pieces, have you ever done the ones in elementary school where they're like, oh yeah, we're gonna draw an X, and then those X's like an X in the center of your thing, and those lines that are on the side are gonna be turned into buildings, right? That kind of thing. That's your one-point perspective. But that perspective actually deals with convergence because it all converges in a single point, which is your vanishing point at the end of the piece. So when things converge at that center point, it doesn't necessarily have to be perspective, but when implied or literal lines converge at a point, it emphasizes the subject that we want to see first. So having all of those lines kind of point directly towards a certain area, it'll create, emphasis. So it can be used literally or with implied lines, like I mentioned. So the implied lines could just be like perspective or just a general angle that a lot of things are going towards, all that fun jazz. Or it can be literal. Maybe you just got arrows. Maybe there's just signs pointing in a specific way. That can be worked too. There's nothing against that. You'll see that a lot with comics, actually. But yeah, it can be used very, very literally or like an implied way. Either or. But it is more often done with implied lines, especially if you're doing scenery or if you're doing just a general piece. Like if you have somebody running to a certain point, that point that they're running towards is going to be emphasized because of the direction they're going. So that's pretty well convergence. So that means that we're going to have our final little example. I think I've already used this example before, but it's a really good one. So this is, oh my gosh, this is the cover art for Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, one of my favorite games ever. I know I'm not alone in saying that it's one of my favorite games ever, but I still feel basic saying it. So Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, obviously this entire game, fantastic. But I'm going to be talking about the cover art specifically, because the cover art has a very, very clear use of convergence in a few ways. So the thing with focal points is that there doesn't only need to be one. There can be more than one focal point in a piece. You just have to establish which one is first and which one is second, which one is third, so on and so forth. Right, and that'll create movement within your piece, which I don't think we talked about. No, we have talked about movement. We talked about movement already. Yeah, movement was our second stream. So we already talked about movement. But we have to use all those other principles to determine that movement that's in there. The clouds. I know. I need to get better at rendering clouds. I think I'm okay, but I'm not that great. But yeah, the Breath of the Wild, obviously a beautiful game, but also just beautiful art within it. Link, yes, there's the boy. Love him. So there's a few ways that convergence is being used here. Convergence is being used in a couple ways to actually emphasize two focal points. First focal point, I'm assuming you've already guessed, right, is Link himself, because it's who your eyes go to first. Actually, technically, your eyes go to the title first. We're going to pretend that that's not there. So, Link is one of the focal points, and then Ganon's castle in the back is the second focal point. First focal point is Link. The reason we know this, A, he's put on a pedestal. B, he's used with contrast in colors and values. So his values are much darker compared to everything here. But we have convergence actually with the items that are surrounding him. So these rocks, the rocks and the hills all point upwards toward him. He converges into a point. He converges into a peak. This peak, our eyes go to first because of the surrounding area that he's within. So this, the top of his head right here is considered a peak. If we simplify down the area that surrounds him, Link becomes that center of focus for this portion of the composition in terms of convergence. There's a bunch of other reasons why he's the focal point, but in terms of convergence, that's why. However, he's also looking towards the castle. Not only that, but the rest of the perspective, like Daria mentioned, the clouds, those beautiful clouds, but also just the general area, they all lead towards this castle. These are very, very implied lines. So we have a lot of, so like this river down here, River of Hylia, I think that's what this is. They all point towards the castle, or I guess this is Hylia, the Hylian castle, which has been taken over by Ganon. But you know, we have all of these different background elements that are pointing towards the castle as well, right? So it's the clouds, it's Link himself who's kind of looking towards there, it's the background elements, it's the rivers, it's the so on and so forth, right? We have all those elements that lead towards the castle, but it is still second place compared to Link, who is directly front and center, who is technically in the foreground and the midground. He's kind of right there, but yeah, so we have all those different things which lead towards our different focal points in terms of conversions. Okay, so that's gonna do it for the lesson portion. All right, I wanted to keep it to 40 minutes. This one wasn't too crazy. Let me just crop this down again. Let's canvas size this. Let's say this is 4,000. Yeah, that works. Yeah, there we go. I think it's cut off. Beautiful. Okay. I'll crop it closer when I'm back in Photoshop. But that's going to do it for the lesson portion on emphasis. Hopefully that makes sense. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. But we're going to be moving on to the final piece. I'm going to make this one a square. I've had like 3 profs tell me to never make square compositions. I don't care. So, so when we have, so if you're kind of new to the channel, you don't know too much about how we run stuff here. Every week we have a poll. No, let me just, no, wait. Yeah, every week we have a poll to determine what we're going to be drawing during the stream. So this stream is all about emphasis, so I decided to say, like, okay, what are we going to emphasize this time around? Obviously, like, for every principle of design stream, it's going to be themed around Kirby in general. So we put up a poll. It was either going to be Kirby, Meta Knight, Waddle Dee, or King Dedede. I figured that Meta Knight would be second. I knew that Kirby was going to win, but I figured that Meta Knight was going to be second. I love Meta Knight. But yeah, so we are going to be we're going to have Kirby be the emphasis. And because this is like our winter stream, technically, we are going to be doing a winterish piece with Kirby, with Kerbal, my boy. So I'm going to try to employ as many. Obviously, I'm going to do isolation mostly. How do I want to do this? I'm trying to think. I should have thought of a composition beforehand. I didn't think of what. Because the thing that I had in mind, because I did say that I was going to make this more wintry, I completely forgot about that. So I was like, oh, I have a composition. Let's do this one. But it's not wintry at all. So I'm like, okay, I guess I have to rethink that. I could have him ice skating, but then I'd have to draw ice. How am I feeling? Let's just start by actually doodling something. Whoops. Where'd the check? Okay, there we go. Let's start by actually just doodling something in there. Oh, I've got an idea. Okay. I guess I am gonna do an ice skating thing then. Do I use a stylus or mouse? I use a stylus, so my tablet is the Cintiq 13 HD. Um, I don't think I could ever use a mouse. I am I feel like my wrist would die with a mouse. I've tried using a mouse. I'm not skilled enough. I don't know how the people who use mice actually do it. But yeah, I use a Cintiq 13 HD. My very first tablet. I don't even know what it was called. But it's older than me. My second tablet was an Intuos Pro 4, which also didn't have a screen. So I was trained without a screen before I actually got a screen tablet. Now I kind of want a bigger screen tablet. Maybe you'll save up for a different Wacom. But we'll wait. I have a Surface as well, but I use that for travel, so I don't use it all the time. I'm gonna go with some leading lines here. Some convergence. Maybe I should have like. Oh no, I have a better idea. I have a better idea for what I want to do. So then I don't really have to draw any other crazy amounts of characters. You could do Kirby building a snowman. Part of me wanted to do that, but I'm like, I don't know how I'd make too like a crazy amount of emphasis with that one. I think I've got it with this one though. I want to draw him skiing and jumping off a cliff. My boy, my son. There he goes, boys. So how have y'all been? Anybody got any winter plans? Lord knows I do. Winter is the busiest time of the year for like my family. There's so much going on. And now there's even more confusion with you know, it's I don't even need to say it. We know what's happening right now. But like we've got even more confusion when it comes to that. But then like there's also extra stuff that I have to do on top of that. And like I'm back in uni, so like there was that whole thing with uni as well. And it was like, man, I prefer a bigger tablet. It feels like you have so much space rather than a small screen with less room. Super true. I do like my 13-inch. It's like it's not too small. It's not too big. My Intuos, I had an older model of the Intuos Pro 4, which had like a fairly large drawing space on it. The new Intuos are very small. But I had like a really old model, which was like pretty large. Because all of my tablets have been used so far. I've never actually bought new before. Um, it's always better to buy used. It's just it's cheaper, and like even my Surface was used. It was refurbished. It wasn't even like fresh out the box or anything. Um, yeah, sleep or work on my traditional art. Soup's true. I'm gonna be working. My entire Christmas break. It's been extended, but I'm still just gonna be working. If it's not schoolwork, then I'm working on other things. Snowman at the night, the white can stand out from a darker scene around it. But then if it's dark around it, then the snowman would also have to be dark in terms of like its darkness. Because I gotta match the area. You know what I mean? Um, unless if the snowman was glowing, but then I'd have to make like I have to draw streamlines with that. The thing with these like streams is that I want to make it like super clear what the principle is, so it can't be like too subtle. And then in that case, then the snowman becomes the focal point, and it's not Kirby, which then breaks what I was gonna plan for the thing. I think I'm gonna paint this one, but I'm gonna clean up some lines first. Has anyone watched Arcane? I've been told to watch Arcane so many times. I don't have time for Netflix. Lord knows I want to though. I don't know anything about League. I know like some of the characters. I know Jinx is like a big part of Arcane. She was the only character I knew before I knew anything about League, to be fair. I have no want to get into League, but Arcane looks beautiful. Hello here in Australia, it's summer, so not really working hospitality. Work. Same. Big same, Chipster. Hide from the cold. I love the cold, so um I much prefer winter over summer in terms of like its temperature. To Arcane. Yeah, no, I've never watched Arcane. It will eventually. It'll happen at some point. I don't know when, but I haven't been pressured as much as I was pressured to watch Squid Game, so it hasn't happened. You know, I love the cold. Yeah, welcome from Australia. That's a huge time difference. So it's like a totally different time where you are right now. Yeah, even if you don't play League, these shows are just so good. Yeah, no, it looks beautiful. I've seen every preview of it. Looks gorgeous. I'm like, one day. It's very good. Yeah, I've been told. My dad saw the preview and he was like, "Jess, you seen Arcane?" I'm like, he's like, "Have you seen the movie Arcane?" I'm like, "It's not a movie, it's a show." And he's like, "Oh, it's a show." And he's like, my dad, also an artist, kind of sitting there. He's like, "This art stuff's beautiful." I'm like, "Yeah, it is beautiful," and it is. It is like I'm not saying that like it like with disdain. It does look very very beautiful. Um, I'm just waiting for when like I can only okay. I'm really brain rotted right now. I can only handle one thing at a time. So I'll see when I have the brain capacity to get into Arcane. Yeah, because I can only handle one thing to obsess over at a time. Same winter all the way. Temperature 80s and 90s now. Celsius? That's crazy. I could no. I die. I feel like that is boiling point is 100. How are you alive? Is that Fahrenheit or Celsius? Australia uses Celsius, doesn't it? We're over here in Canada. We use Celsius too. It's not the we're not American. It's only the Americans that use Fahrenheit. I don't know anything about imperial. Actually, that's not true. I like with measurements. I feel like I'm better at like visualizing like 5 feet compared to like 2 meters. 7 a.m. here at the moment. Sheesh. Yeah, no, absolutely not. I would be. I cannot stream at 7 a.m. It's like almost 5 p.m. over here. Good art takes time. Good art does take time. Yes, indeed. I, however, love to speed through everything. Fahrenheit? Does Australia really use Fahrenheit? I don't think so. Don't they use like how lagged is this chat? It feels like it's more lagged than usual. Or it's like more behind than usual. I wonder what's up with that. Good everyone. Hello GG, welcome in. Okay, 30 Celsius. Okay, yeah, there you go. Were you converting for us? I appreciate it. Okay, 30. That makes more sense. I have been in 30 weather before. I also could not stand that. That was too hot for me. My Canadian butt could not stand that. Too hot. My ideal weather is like right now. Like it's like my ideal weather is like -5 to +15. That tends to be like my ideal range, like slightly chilly. I love that temperature. Especially like the best is like 10 to 5. Like +10, +5, the best. It's like kind of crisp. Especially if it's at nighttime and it's like a clear night to see the stars and it's like kind of crisp. That's nice. I haven't hit 40s yet. I would melt if I was anywhere that got to 40 degrees. I would melt. Oh no, we use Celsius. I thought you were in the US. Okay, yeah. So you were converting for us. I appreciate it, but yeah, no, Canadian. We don't we use Celsius too. Today's the start of winter break for me. I have plans to do cell shaded painting. Love that. I did a big painting last night. Actually, I did a character, from a D&D campaign. It was a cool down painting, but I was like, I ended up spending maybe way too much time on it. Oh well. Oh, why is Photoshop closed? I thought I had it open. Oh well, it's okay. It was 48 Celsius that summer for you? Gross. Disgusting. I would die. I'd lose my mind. First time I started digital art, I was so impatient. I wanted to move from stickman to anime. I went straight to anime because like I was very much a traditional artist, but I drew all that anime all the time. I'd say the style doesn't matter. I'd say you should start with your diagrams and then move from there. Yeah, no, I am. See, what's nice about a lot of people, the correct principle is slow and steady wins the race. I'm known to be. I like to be very fast. I'm very much the type where it's like I better be able to learn it. And what just happened? Hello? Whoa! What was that? Let's get rid of that. Don't know what that was. Oh, it's one of these things. I've never used this before. Yeah, I'm one of those people where it's like if I can't learn it in 20 minutes, then I don't care. It's not a good idea to have, by the way. Don't listen to me. Yeah, I was very much like I gotta learn this fast. So I think I learned digital art pretty quick, but the nuances and whatever I've started to. It's been a few years. Like I started digital art back when I was 13ish. So I've been doing digital art for about 7 years now. All of my digital art knowledge, by the way, I don't watch tutorials. All of my digital art knowledge, by the way, comes from watching people do speed paints. I will learn best when I watch other people do their work rather than have people instructionally tell me. Because I get bored if you teach to me by step by step. So like I have to just watch you work, and that's how I'll learn. It was death, hottest summer on record. Disgusting. I could never. PSD. Let's save this one. This is 43-1. Kirby be skiing. Yeah, he is. Winter gear, locked and loaded. I've been walking around in. Welcome to Canada. I've been walking around in a crop top and a coat. That's basically what I've been doing. Because it's like the coat keeps me way too hot, so I'm like, okay, I'll just have the coat open. I'll be in like a crop top and jeans, and I'll walk around in the coat. Because it's like it's not cold here right now. It's only like the coldest it's gotten is like -6, which is not that bad. So I've just been like walking around in that. Like I don't even have boots. I've been wearing shoes. So it's like it's not cold right now. Hello, Kenny. Welcome in. I'm originally from Mexico, and my birth town has an average of 20 to 23 all year round. Oof, no thank you, sir. Too hot. Too hot. Anything above like 19 is too hot for me if I'm sitting there. I do like 20. Like if I'm like 20 is fine, but if it's outside and it's 20, that's too hot. I'll get way too hot. 20 to 23 sounds pretty nice. No, Daria, I can't. I didn't mean to do this many sketch passes, but like I have the time, so I might as well. You know what? No, let's not. Okay, let's just say this. Send line. Change this to multiply, and let's actually start coloring. Okay. Let's do the background first. That's something I've been trying to get better at. Let's do the background before anything else. And I don't have my preset gradients. Woo! So I have to color pick a sky from memory. Let's make that lighter. Oops. You know what? Can I change the circular? That's more realistic. And then if we have... So then I can get to play with some lighting. Sorry, don't mind me. I'm just trying to figure this out real quick. Alright, sick. Okay. -16 where I'm right now. Nice! That's good. That's a good temperature. -17 this morning. Love it. I'm running out of all out of nibs for my stylus, so I'm currently using my finger. Oh no! Oh no. I could never. I can't do finger drawing. I have a lot of people who can do finger drawing. Finger drawing, like drawing on with their finger. No. Absolutely not. For those of you who are new, I don't know if you've noticed yet, I'm kind of a snob, so don't mind me. I'm a bit of a I'm a bit annoying just in terms of what I use, so like don't mind me. So what I'm doing, this is going to be a digital painting, so what I'm doing right now is I am kind of setting everything up. So I'm setting everything up in terms of me once I actually get to the painting portion. So that's me setting up the flat colors and setting up the lighting and setting up all of that fun jazz. So right now what I'm just doing is I'm kind of filling in the base colors. Because I finally got a Medibank account, so I can download some of the different brushes. So I have that now. But yeah. Because I was getting kind of annoyed at the G pen a bit. So I'm like, I want different shaped brushes, please. So I'm like, because I've been messing around with that a lot in my normal programs. And having only the G pen accessible was getting a little bit irritating. So I was like, okay, let's actually do something different. I'll make that a bit brighter. That's better. I've also noticed that I've been working with very, very high saturation as of late. I don't know why. It's just I've been really crazy I've been going kind of crazy with saturation as of late. Which is like goes against a lot of what I did in high school. I worked with very low saturation back then. Like more realistic saturation. So I've been going kind of ham with it. Okay. What? Hello? Does my back eraser not work anymore? What do you mean? Oh, yes it does. What the? Oh wait. Oh, it doesn't track my back eraser anymore. What? Why don't you do that? Okay, I guess. Guess I'll have to fix that somewhere. I was wondering what was up with that. I'm like, why isn't it tracking the eraser? Because I have to just keep on clicking E now. How's it going? I am doing all right, Kenny. How about yourself? It's been a weird week or two. In turning from my little corner of the earth, yeah, I've been alive. That's about right. Yeah, I've been alive. That's the only way. How many layers do I normally have in all? Not many. When I actually get to the rendering portion, which will be like after I sort out all the what's it called? Once I sort out all of my lighting and whatever, my layers will all end up being merged and then I'll paint on a single layer, which is like something that's not recommended. I don't recommend it. um so I tend to just kind of do everything on one layer. Lag, yeah, it's gonna have lag. I can't control that, guys. Like with my responses. If you ask me a question, it's gonna take a bit of a while. It depends on where you are, it depends on your internet connection, how caught up you are either, as well. So like I respond to it immediately when I see the comment. But I don't know when it actually happens. It seems like the lag is crazier today than usual. I don't know why. Um, It says that the stream health is fine, so I'm not sure what's happening on that front. YouTube's kind of wacky recently anyway. I do need to understand my art program that I use. Yeah. Like, I started with Photoshop, and now I have knowledge on a few different programs. Like, I use Photoshop, I use CSP, I use Medibang for work, so on and so forth. Yeah, so Kirby's gonna be the only portion, so I'm gonna be using contrast with colors. Kirby's gonna be the only portion of this piece that is using warm colors. So I'm using a lot of reds, a lot of oranges, pinks with Kirby. So he'll have a nice emphasis on him, also having the sun be directly behind him, so that kind of helps isolate him a little bit. Kirby's having the best time. Yes, he is. You prefer Medibang? I actually prefer Photoshop. I prefer Photoshop and CSP over Medibang. There's a lot more functions, a lot of things that are a little bit easier. Recognizes my tablet better. The brush is more responsive. Medibang's brush, like, it happened a while ago. For those of you who have been through our world, you know what I'm talking about. Like, you know that, like, at one point, for some reason, Medibang's brush started lagging like crazy for some reason. Like, it just would not track as it did before. So then we had to switch to Photoshop for a few weeks. I somewhat fixed it. Like, it's not perfect, not even the slightest. It still has this weird lag. It doesn't let me blend the same way. But like, it's usable, so I use it. But yeah, all in all, I definitely prefer like the more advanced programs that I use. Medibang is great though if you're a beginner. It's really, really simple. It's easy to understand. I just ended up I was fortunate enough to start with the probably one of the most complicated programs you can get. Like, my very first program was Photoshop. Because my dad's a photographer, so I had access to it. But yeah, if you're just starting out, Medibang is great. Okay. Oops. Oh, that's right. References the canvas. Just reference the layer. Thank you. Yep. And then what I can do is I can do this fun little jazz. Oh, I forgot the snow on these trees. Oopsies. Clip Studio. Never used Photoshop. Yeah, Photoshop is technically Photoshop is industry standard. Do you have to use it? No. A lot of my friends don't use Photoshop. They hate Photoshop. I'm a dinosaur. I like Photoshop. Like, I use both. I have Clip and I have Photoshop. But in terms of like me comparing the two, I tend to prefer Photoshop overall. But both are phenomenal programs. I mean, Photoshop's okay. Photoshop, I think, is more photo editor heavy, so like it has different functions compared to CSP, which is more Illustrator heavy. Like, you know, just for me, I prefer Photoshop. But yeah, it just depends on what you're into. Let's make this a bit stronger. Let's do like, yeah, that's better. So this is just me adding in the rim light and kind of figuring out, laying down all of how this is gonna work. It's almost like we're looking up at this. Have you used paint.net? I used to make Minecraft texture packs. No, I have not. I used to use an app for that. Like, when I used to make texture packs, it was like, texture packs isn't like, I made them when I was in like 5th grade. And like, I barely remember what I did. And nowadays it's just like if I play Minecraft, then I just like buy pre-made shaders and like whatever. If I have a skin, then I'll just get it pre-made. And I'm like, okay, cool. Too lazy to make my own. There's gonna have to be rim light on here too. Let's do that in post. So let's put these. Oh, that's right. I have to no. I have to select them and then move them into the folder. I can't just create the folder. And I also can't add clipping masks to folders, which is fine. Yep, so then that's all it takes. And then I create one merged layer, and then that's what I start painting with. My name's Tommy, I'm 14, you've been helping my art, so thank you. Of course, welcome. I'm glad that I could help you, even though your username says Javad, but I'm glad I could help you. Okay, let's see. What did I download? I downloaded you, right? Let's test this out. Let's see how well you actually work. You're not too bad, actually. You don't handle amazing. Let's try some other stuff. Square watercolor, huh? Ooh, you're nice. All right, let's stick with you. Actually, you're kind of okay, but I'll stick with it. It is nicer than what the other Medibang brushes were. You're not too bad. I can handle this. Oh, have you switched to like... You've switched to a subtract. That's fantastic. That's good. I like that. So you recognize it as a subtract instead. That's good. That's nice. I started with Corel, moved to Photoshop, used GIMP, and then started with Clip Studio. Nice. Yeah. Oh, Corel Painter. I know that it exists. I've never tried it. GIMP. I could never use GIMP. I've tried GIMP a couple times. I didn't really like it that much. Clip Studio is awesome. Also, my Clip Studio is currently doing its best to commit die in the middle of my painting. Me. I use Clip mostly for its extra assets. Like, I love its perspective ruler. Because I need to do a lot of backgrounds. So, like, if I ever have issues with backgrounds, I'm like, alright, let's load up Clip. And I'll just... That's the way that I shorthand my my perspective, is just I use Clip Studio. Because, like, can I do perspective without, like, a perspective ruler? Yes, but in terms of where I am with my art right now, I am really heavily relying on speed rather than or efficiency compared to actual skill building. So, like, if you were a newer artist, I would recommend that you don't rely on the program's abilities to learn your work, but like, I prefer, I think it'd be better if you learned it first and then was okay with the program, but like default to the program, but like, you know, the tool is there for you to use, so if you ever want to use it, it's there. But like for me, perspective has been drilled into me for years. I had to do it traditionally before I could do it digitally, so I'm like, yeah, I think I'm good. I don't actually know how to draw skis. This is as close as you're getting. Game crashes when I had it. It didn't crash for me. It was a really simple program. It didn't have a lot of RAM, or it didn't take up too much space or anything, so it was like it ran easily and whatnot. Oh, does this automatically blend? I don't really want that. It does. I don't really want that. Okay, hang on. This one's kind of fun. I like the texture on this one. I'm gonna keep using this one though. It doesn't blend amazing, though. Whoops. I'm actually gonna do some bounce on this. Those who don't know what this is bounce light. So what bounce light does is it has an extra, gives your forms that extra bit of oomph. Yeah, I don't like that it's circular. I don't like circular brushes. Okay, wait. What's this? Crayon. Oh, okay. Are we gonna go for that Procreate look? Maybe. Beginner Procreate look? Yeah. That I just got Procreate and now I want to use it like this forever look. Anytime I try perspective by reference, I draw it the way I see it. If it doesn't come out good, so I don't know what's going on. And perspective will be death with me. Perspective is one of those things, one of those artist thing. What is this one? Perspective is one of those things with art where it's not enough just to work from reference. You probably have to understand what's going on as well. So if you don't understand like how perspective works, then it probably won't look good either. Perspective's really annoying like that. But yeah, so I'd recommend actually understanding what you're doing with perspective first before actually just trying to work from reference. Can I pressure by opacity this? It is opacity by pressure. Then why? Back to the G pen. But yeah, perspective is one of those things where it's like it won't turn out nice if you don't really get what's happening. So it'll probably be best if you just like figure out how perspective is going on, learn about vanishing points, learn about 1, 2, 3 point. So you can have that prior knowledge and then fill it in once you actually work from it. But yeah, perspective is one of those things that you also kind of, it takes a while for you to get used to as well. I think I'm pretty okay at like freehanding perspective at this point. But like I'm not perfect. I definitely, there's so much I need to learn still. But like I think I've gotten pretty good at freehanding it. But it's definitely one of those things where it's like you gotta draw it over and over and over to understand it. Not only draw it over and over and over, but learn to love it as well. I love perspective. Things become a lot easier to draw when you start to learn to like it. Trust me on this one. Like I I say this to a lot of people a lot. Like, listen, stuff stops being hard when you actually stop giving it the power to be hard. I promise you. I think it was like I don't even know when I started doing this, but at one point in my life I was like I'm just gonna like stop going like, oh, I don't want to draw this, it's so hard. I'm just gonna start saying like, yeah, that's easy, I'll do it. And it made art so much easier. It's like I was like, yeah, I can do that, that's easy. And then like it just became easy. It's like it sounds like the dumbest piece of advice ever, but I'm not even joking when I say that it works. Just trick yourself into thinking that it's easy, and eventually it does become easy. Or at the very least, like go like acknowledge that it's tough, but don't close yourself off to it. Go like, oh yeah, it's tough, but I'm okay with that. I like the challenge, and then it also becomes very easy. I love perspective. Perspective doesn't love me. Make it love you. I'm joking. That's um. You'll get there eventually. I am certain that you will get there with enough perseverance. I like the way you can draw things in more than one view. Thank you. Yeah, it's good to draw stuff in different views. It's good to challenge yourself. Don't draw everything from the same view over and over and over. A, it gets boring. B, it hinders your abilities as an artist. So like you can do it over and over and over and over to get better at it, but you got to change up what you're doing as well to add that interest back into your work, you know. It's one thing to have a niche, it's another thing to start to get boring, you know. Blue? Should I use blue? Should I use pink? Maybe I'll use pink. Just give back that ambient occlusion. To bring the warmth back in. Yeah, that feels better. This is very stylized. This is not realistic at all. I don't care. This lighting does not make sense. It's okay. It's whatever. No one needs to know. Kirby be falling in style. Yeah, he is. Do you ever perhaps have a place I could download your Photoshop brushes? Mine all suck. I use all the default Photoshop brushes. My brushes in Photoshop are like... Actually, it depends. What version of Photoshop do you have? If you use the legal version, then you can get these. If you use the totally 100% definitely legal version, then you cannot have these. But mine are all the Kyle brushes, so I download them from Photoshop's website. When you're in Photoshop itself, there should be a window where it's like, get more brushes, and like when you go there, then it'll automatically redirect you to the Adobe website, and then there'll be an area for you to download. My favorite lining brush is Kyle's Manga Edge. My favorite rendering brush, one of my favorite rendering brushes is Kyle's Builder, which is on his Gumroad. It's actually not on the Photoshop site. Hello Alicia, welcome in. But yeah, all of my brushes are either like all like Kyle brushes or downloaded from artists, where some of them I paid for, so I can't like give them out on both a moral standpoint and a legal standpoint. I bought a book on digital coloring years ago. It came with different brushes instead of special effects. Nice. I've never been the book type. I love reading, but like in terms of like my tutorials and whatever, I'm just like I've picked up most of my knowledge just from looking online. Like I have a lot of profs that are like, you should get this book. It's good to read, and I'm like, yeah, and then I never do. I'm just like, cool, and I just keep doing whatever I'm doing. Maybe that's bad advice, you know. I love art books though. I love looking at like art books from other artists, like seeing how they work and their journeys. That's what inspires me, and that's what gets me hyped to do stuff. Like watching, I have the art book for Kubo and the Two Strings. I have the art book for Spirited Away. I have an art book of an artist, Devin L. Kurtz, who's a concept background painter. He's really, really good. I have the concept art book for God of War, the fourth one. What else do I have? I have one for what's her name? Yume, Yuumei. Yume, really great artist. I can't see it from here. I have a whole shelf of them. I'm trying to remember which ones I have. But anyway, I have quite a few concept art books. Because I love looking at other people's work. To become a digital artist, do you have to learn traditional? No, not at all. I just ended up starting with traditional. Like that was the thing that I grew up with. Like I was a traditional artist at heart when I was younger. I was one of those losers that was like, digital's not real art. But that was just because I was jealous that I didn't know how to do digital. I started doing digital when I was 13, so I'd been drawing for my whole life before that though. So I was very proficient in traditional work before then. I still think I'm like okay with traditional. I'm not that great. But I mean I have to do it for school now. But definitely like you do not have to be a traditional artist at all if you want to learn digital. Like can you? Sure, but you don't have to. I want to go harder on the edges here. I edge harder on the light that's bouncing off the edges here. Let's go even brighter, yeah. I don't have Photoshop. Clip can use Photoshop brushes. Yeah. Okay. For sure. Then yeah, no, I can't give it to you. I'm sorry. From a legal standpoint, I'm not allowed to. From a moral standpoint, I also will not allow myself to, just because I don't like stealing from artists. So I don't want to re-give out the brushes that I've purchased from them. Obviously, I have no issue with stealing from Adobe. But, I shouldn't have said that. Don't steal. Don't steal. But yeah, sorry, I can't give out my brushes, but yeah, it's okay. Technically, the brushes that you use, they don't like. Oh, some of my favorite brushes though that are technically Photoshop brushes, but will work in Clip, obviously. Devin L. Kurtz brushes, fantastic. Just go on his Gumroad; they're all there. Or go on their Gumroad. I don't remember their gender, or their pronouns, but go on their Gumroad. They have all their brushes there. Devin L. Kurtz. Let me write that down. That's Devin L. I think that's how you spell it. Devin L. Kurtz. Devin L. Kurtz, I believe. um, their Gumroad has all of their brush sets, which are phenomenal. I love them all. Kyle's brush sets as well. If you just look up like Kyle brushes, you'll find some probably. Gotta go. Have an early start. Have a good day. You as well, Chipster. Thanks for joining. Which drawing app should I get when I have a drawing tablet? It literally doesn't matter. Whatever you start with is up to you. Like I started with Photoshop. Some people start with Medibang. If you want something simpler, start with Medibang. If you want something more high end, start with like Clip. But I actually wouldn't recommend starting with Clip. Start with something free. That's a good idea. Yeah, that's a good piece of advice. Start with something free. Because you don't know if you'll like digital or not. If you find that you really like digital, then go to a paid program. But if you find like you start digital and you're like, man, this sucks, then don't continue. Obviously, and you don't need to. And then just you didn't pay for the program, so whatever. Um, good because I suck at traditional art. But yeah, Daria is 100% correct. A lot of traditional skills are interchangeable from digital to traditional. Because a lot of drawing foundations, you don't have to learn traditionally, you don't have to learn digitally, but if you learn them traditionally, obviously they're going to be transferred over to digital. So, and vice versa. If you learn your basics in digital work, then you're going to be able to do them traditionally as well. Like, it should carry over. Your elements and principles are the same, regardless of whatever medium you work with, right? Your perspective will remain the same, so on and so forth. You know? Obviously some people are rustier with traditional, but the like you should have skills that will be able to transfer over. Oh yes, I totally forgot about that. 100% true. Daria's got it. The digital art softwares. Soup's true. Totally forgot that existed. It wasn't me that made it, so it's. Oh my god, it's 5:30. Yeah, I forgot to do the midway thing, but I'll talk a bit about what's coming up because we have winter camps that are coming up pretty soon. Pretty soon. I believe they're actually starting next week. The winter camps. There's the normal winter camps. We have teen intensives as well, which I'm going to be teaching. I'm teaching illustration for a week. I believe there's also going to be graphic design. That's going to be taught by Jay. There's going to be figure drawing taught by the lovely Faye. There's going to be comic design, which is going to be taught by Alina, so not by me. But Alina's wonderful. But yeah, we've got a bunch of camps and whatnot coming up. Obviously, the intensives are not the only thing that's available. There are also children's camps, kids camps, technically. Anybody of any age can join, but they are considered quote unquote kids camps because they're a bit simpler. So if you just want like a couple weeks of fun, those are coming up. Anyway, I spent so much time on Kirby that I haven't touched the rest of the background. I should probably do that soon. But yeah, if you want to check out the winter camps that are coming up, be sure to do so soon. if you want to have some art fun. Oh, we have portfolio mentorships too? Fun. All right, so we've also got portfolio mentorships that's going to be happening during the winter as well. So if you have portfolios that you got to hand in February, be sure to join in there. I believe Faye is going to be hosting those. So yeah. If you got anything outstanding, you got any portfolios to hand in, we got you. Portfolios kind of suck, so if you if you want help on creating one, we got you. Oh, okay. Last day to register is Saturday, December 18th, 11:59 p.m. Oh, so tomorrow. Last day to register is tomorrow. So if you want to sign up for anything, be sure to do so before it's gone. I have a portfolio, I don't know where to start. Me neither. I didn't know where to start either, and I still got in. Don't take my example. I do have a video on, or Faye made a video with me about what I did with my portfolio. Where I think I just complained for 45 minutes, but people said it was helpful, so hopefully it was. But yeah, we have a couple of portfolio videos up right now, but we do also have the portfolio mentorships, which are coming up with Faye, I believe. So if you'd like to check those out, those are happening soon. Should have made this darker. Should have been a darker. Sorry if you can hear my stomach. Also, sorry if I get quiet at certain points, just means I'm focusing. I'm just trying to figure out what I'm doing. Yeah, so I'm just kind of trying to think about how this rim lighting is going to work. Because I'm actually not very good at rim lighting. Because rim lighting is more than just, oh yes, I will add light to the edge of this form and it will look good. Because there is some nuance to it, obviously. So I'm like, trying to figure out how that's going to work. I am the type to wing a lot of stuff, so like, if I'm like, I don't know how this works, alright, I'll just figure it out on the spot, I don't know. You notice me zooming out a lot, it's also me just kind of checking what I'm doing. It's always better to look at the full picture compared to, yeah, it's always good to look at the full picture than zoom in too much and lose the full picture, because if you get too zoomed in on an area, you can lose track of what you're doing. It's kind of what happened with Kirby. I focused a little bit too hard on Kirby, and now I've got the whole background left to do, and it's like, oh dang, I didn't even think about that. You know what I mean? I'm just gonna use my other window here. Let's look up snowy. Oops. Let's look up references of snow, because I actually don't know how to draw snow. Whoops. I forgot that the arrow keys on Medibang are nudging instead of inching, or it's rotation instead of nudging, which is a little bit annoying. You can't nudge in Medibang. You can only rotate, which is a bit weird. Yeah, portfolio season kind of wacky. It's a necessary it's a necessary evil of being an artist, unfortunately. Is portfolios. You want to get a job? Yeah, sorry, buddy, you need a portfolio. I think I can Lightroom this one too, probably. Wait. So to make sure that I'm getting the colors right. Something that gets really hard. DDD will never see him coming, never. Something that gets harder to draw as you get older is rocks. You don't think that rocks are that hard when you're younger, then you get older and you're like, wow, how do I draw a rock? It's something really strange that I noticed as I got older. I'm like, wow, I got really bad at drawing rocks for some reason. And it's like, no, it wasn't that you got bad at it. It's that you kind of understood that rocks are actually really tough. I love drawing them. I love the challenge, but it is very much like, whoa, it's harder than I thought it'd be. Always welcome for a challenge. Masochist for art only. A lot of what I'm just kind of doing here is just flavoring it up, adding ingredients, cleaning up certain areas, you know. Helps give it some more texture, some more form. The only reason why I started digital art is because I write novels and wanted to create my characters on my own. So here I am. Nice, yeah. Like I'm a character artist. I started with like technically you don't have to draw your characters when you're a writer. Like for me, I like comics, so you kind of have to draw the characters if you're gonna write comics. But yeah, definitely. Like I think I started digital because like I saw like a bunch of other people doing digital, and then my dad was like, and then I didn't know that I could do digital until like my dad was I saw somebody online make an animation using Photoshop, and I was like, wait, they're using Photoshop to draw. My dad has Photoshop. I have Photoshop, so I was like, ooh. So I learned how to. I just kind of learned on my own by watching like other people work in Photoshop and like other digital art programs. So I just watched speed paints and learned how what layers were and learned how what some of the really basic functions were. And then as I got older, I started learning even more on my own. You know, but yeah, there's a lot of reasons why people become digital artists. I have a friend who just was like, yeah, I didn't like traditional, so I was like, I decided digital probably was better for me, and it was. I was like, yeah, valid. I started digital art because I wanted it to look nice. Look nice is very subjective. So, um, like I like how clean digital can look. Like I like the finished quality of it. So, the finished, very computer generated quality of it. But yeah, lots of reasons why people do mediums. I know that some people prefer traditional because they like the feeling of the traditional material. Like they like the feeling of the rougher material and whatnot. It's like, yeah, sorry, buddy, I'm not with that. I. It's like I kind of like my digital because I can move faster. Oh, Faye? Yeah, Faye just sent something. I was like, who's Fee? I'm like, oh, Faye. Faye just sent something in Discord about portfolios. Yep. I've got a meeting with Faye after this, actually. But yeah, I believe Faye is going to be the main person who's helming the portfolio stuff. Ooh, I just had a muscle spasm. What was that? I felt my leg kind of twitch a little bit. That was weird. Oh, why are you locked? What the? Stop. Stop. The back racer only works 50% of the time. What is this? Oh, now it works. What's up with that? Is tracing reference a bad thing? Depends. So if you're tracing reference just to learn, do it. If you're tracing reference and then posting it and saying that it's yours, that's bad. Bad practice. Tracing reference should just be for personal gain. It shouldn't be a method for you to work. If you are tracing just for like personal gain, you're not going to get anything out of it. You're not even posting it. You're not even letting anybody know that you're doing it. So what? Right? Because then you're just learning. That's for educational purposes. If you are tracing and then going, oh, I referenced this, but you trace it, that's not referencing. That's tracing. It's very, very different. If you're referencing a work, how I always like to reference is if I'm referencing something, it will be, you know, I'll probably have the reference and I'll change the angle that it's drawn in. Like I'll use more than one reference. I'll have like a good like 3 references of something at the very minimum. I'll draw it from a different angle and I'll make sure it's like different colors or whatnot, right? So they say if I'm like drawing a motorcycle, I'll have like a few different references of the same motorcycle in different angles. I'll draw it from a very specific angle that is not there to make sure that I'm understanding what I'm drawing, not just drawing it. You know. So TLDR, it's bad if you're posting it, but not if you're just learning. Because if you're posting it and saying that it's yours, that's thievery. So we don't want to. That's plagiarism. So we don't want to do that. Your digital art should be your own. Within a portfolio, you'll also be rejected on the spot if they find out that you've been tracing. So yeah, don't do that. Bad practice. Bad practice. If you're doing it, if all of your pieces are traced, bad practice. Okay. Well, about 17 minutes left. Yeah, I can do that in this amount of time. See, I like the peaks of the trees. I don't really like too much anything. I don't really love anything else, but that's fine. You win some, you lose some. Cute Kirby, thank you. Thank you and welcome in, Evelyn. Oh, I forgot the... Bruh. I totes forgot this section, too. What? I started speaking like a Y2K girl. I'm going like, yeah, that's totes cool. It's totes sweet. I say obvi, too. I'm like, yeah, obvi. Well, actually, the one that I've been saying the most is, phenom. I'm like, wow, that's so phenom. I don't know why I've been saying it so much. It's like I'm kind of reverting to like the year I was born or something. I wasn't even alive when people were talking like this. Or I was alive, but I wasn't like conscious enough. I'm like, wow, phenom. It's amazing. Bruh. It's not. That doesn't look too bad from afar, so I'll just leave it. But tracing and changing completely doesn't count as stealing. No, it's still tracing. Tracing is tracing. You shouldn't trace. Like that's just not. Tracing is really only done as a way for people to understand the methods of other people. I wouldn't recommend tracing from artwork at all. If you're tracing, then at the very least make it tracing from a photo. I wouldn't trace from artwork at all because like not only are you tracing somebody else's work, but you're also kind of working by learning from their art style directly, which is considered plagiarism as well. But yeah, I wouldn't trace at all because it really like to do a finished work. I wouldn't trace at all because it really does show like at the very core of it, it is plagiarism. It doesn't matter how much you change, right? If you trace like think of it as if you're tracing like a brand thing, right? And they go like, "Oh yeah, you've traced my work." And you're like, "No, no, no, I've changed it enough." That doesn't really change anything. You still traced it, right? That's not really your work. It's somebody else's. You're kind of piggybacking off of their achievements, right? So, tracing for a finished piece? No, big no. Fuzzy hat, fuzzy hat. He is fuzzy. I'm sorry if you can hear my back cracking. Just me kind of like twisting every few minutes to like reset my spine a bit. Oh goodness, what's happening here? Yeah, okay. Yeah, just tracing's not good practice to make final artworks. You should be learning to work on your own without tracing. Tracing is just a method for you to learn, not a method for you to make final pieces with. Like especially if you're tracing another artist's work, a lot of artists hate it when people do that because it is a form of thievery. There is a form of art studying called a master study, and what master studies are, they're not even tracing. They're not tracing, but it is copying the piece exactly. The thing with a master study is that you call it a master study, you say that it's not yours. So like if you do post a master study, generally people are okay with master studies. Also, the people who make those pieces tend to be dead, so it's like a lot of people study like Caravaggio, and Caravaggio is a big one that people study from. Caravaggio, Rembrandt is another one that people study from. Monet, another one. Johannes Vermeer. Um, right, and a lot of the times master studies are literally just to get better, or a study. So then, like, just a study from a picture. Again, though, picture, not art piece. And they'll study the lighting, they'll study the forms, they'll study the composition, right? And they'll pretty well copy the image, but they'll do it kind of in their own style, so they can A, build up their own style, B, understand from realism better. So master studies are not frowned upon. Master studies are very common, but you gotta, yeah. You have artist posture. We all understand the back cracks. I'm trying not to have artist posture. I'm trying not to live like a shrimp, just because I went into I had borderline scoliosis, and I don't want to fall into that again. So I'm trying to be better with my posture. But yeah, I do just have stiff joints, so you know, that kind of just comes with being an artist, I suppose. What about tracing pictures like real life pictures? Like I mentioned, tracing pictures, great for studying, great for studies, not great for final pieces. If you are making a final piece that's meant to be from imagination, not great. If you are doing a study, fine, right? I've done a bit of tracing for studies, but those studies, again, should not go anywhere. They're you and for you alone, right? Um, I'm literally just gonna say it. Tracing is not real art. I'm gonna be real controversial. I think a lot of people would agree with me. But tracing is not. That's not you making the piece. That's you getting somebody else's piece and kind of slapping your name on top of it. Right. And when it comes to studies are something that like you look at the photo, you don't trace it, but you understand it and you work from it. Right? So a study is like you understand what you're looking at, but you don't trace it. Maybe you'll color pick when you're working digitally, but you won't trace it. You'll just kind of look at it and understand what you're looking at, right? The same goes for like master studies, right? If you're working from a painting that's from like an old dead dude, you're not tracing the painting. You're looking at the painting, understanding what you're looking at, and then kind of making the piece your own by integrating it into your art style or working from different techniques that you've never tried before, right? But you're understanding how they work with light and form and all that fun jazz to make your work better. But you're not tracing. You're never tracing. You're just like kind of working from that, right? If you are tracing just for, again, if you are tracing just for like personal gain, like just to get better, fine, whatever. But you're not posting it anywhere. You shouldn't post it anywhere because it's not yours. Making them for final pieces, not good practice. Not at all. You're hindering yourself. You really are. Because then you're going like, oh, I can't draw without tracing something. That's not you drawing them. That's you copying something. This is the most hard opinion I've ever had. You know me, I'm like for other things that I've talked about on stream, I'm very much like kind of devil's advocate about stuff. It's like I'll kind of be able to see both sides. For tracing, I'm a very hard no with. That's a very big hard no for me. To make final pieces with, no, photo or drawn, you know. Like imagine going up to somebody. I'm gonna keep going about this. Imagine going up to somebody, right, and like a portfolio or like a job interview. And they go like, "How'd you make this piece?" And you're like, "Oh, I traced it." They go, "You traced it?" Like, yeah. And they're like, "Can you work without tracing?" And that's the question. Can you? Right? So it's like tracing is great for studies, not great if it's a final piece. That's cool, Jessie. Thank you. Yeah, no, this is the hardest opinion I think I've ever had on stream. Like even like with my lessons, I'm like, yeah, you could do this, you don't have to, but you know, like so on and so forth, right? This is the harshest opinion I think I've ever had. But yeah, it's the one that I'm standing firm with, you know. No tracing. Do not trace. Unless if it's for studies, for personal gain and so forth, but not for final pieces. Okay. Alright, this isn't too bad. I can probably adjust it a bit, though. Let's add some final touches. Oh, let's actually just remove that. No. Yeah, let's do that. An overlay layer kind of helps unify all of your colors. So it's like without, with. So with it gives it a bit of a blue sheen, which kind of brings everything back together, makes the piece look cold, but it gives more emphasis on Kirby. I'm gonna create another layer. I'm gonna make this my multiply layer. Actually, I'm gonna make this my ambient occlusion layer. So ambient occlusion are your baked in shadows, which I don't like adding in Medibang, but I like because the airbrush does not like me in this program. But yeah, without with, it gives it a bit of an extra bump of darkness in some areas. Oh, let's actually just subtract that real quick. Yeah, because even if it's at like 8%, it's gonna be like, oh yeah, it's 100. It's like, no, it's not. Let me just, please. Yeah, without with, so it gives it a nice kind of bump up. And then what I'm actually gonna do is I'm gonna do some glows. I'm gonna put that below here. I'm actually gonna make this whitish. So it's behind here. So what this glows do, this is a reflection of light, very, very prominent with snow, 100%. Because snow is very, very reflective. So with, without, gives it a nice bump up of reflected light as well. Makes it a bit more atmospheric. How do you get clean line art? I think it's because Jessie draws every day. Well, that too. I love line art. Line art's like one of my favorite processes, which is funny because I've been doing so much painting, which means that I don't do line art often. Line art takes a really controlled hand and a really stable one. And it's like, how do I explain it? The line art is like riding a, no, I've explained this a bajillion times. Line art is like riding a bicycle, right? The faster you move, the smoother it's gonna be. If you sit there and you're like, I'm gonna use this one for a bit. If you sit there and your hand is really moving really slow, right? I'm gonna keep my correction at 0. If your hand is moving really slow, you're gonna pick up all of that handshake. If you move nice and quick, none of that handshake's gonna be in there, right? If I like try to kind of move very slow, right? You see a lot of that handshake. If you move nice and quick, you're not gonna get any of that handshake in there. You're gonna have to undo a few times, but that handshake is not gonna be in there. And then especially if you're working with opacity, it takes a bit of control within the wrist to be able to make your lines nice and thick and thin in certain areas, you know? Okay, wait. my handwriting is not meant for calligraphy. You know? Right? It takes a bit of wrist control. But it's something that you get better at as you work more. I wish my mom named me Jessie. I don't know if that would help you absorb my, I guess, powers, but... it's just me drawing for ages of my life. You know what I mean? I've been doing this for 20 years and, you know, like digital for 7, drawing in general for 20. So it's been like, you know, a very long time. I've been kind of drawing for like my entire life, you know. I'm pretty well done. I'm just kind of waiting for the last minute to time out. But hi, sorry I'm late. That's all right, Riley. We're actually pretty much done. Let me just, I'm gonna sign this one because I've been told to do that a couple times. Okay. All right, though, y'all. That's gonna do it for. Oh, I did. You know what I did wrong? I should have. Okay, that's fine. It's whatever. All right, y'all. That is gonna do it for this stream. Thank you so much for joining. Again, if you don't know too much about the studio, never been here before, we are not just an art studio, but we are also or we're not just a YouTube channel, we're also an art studio. So if you'd like to check out the classes that we offer, be sure to check those out on our website. So if you'd like to check out the website, we have classes that are offered up there. Winter camps are happening soon. The final day for registration is tomorrow, so make sure that you sign up for them there. I'm teaching intensives, and there are a lot of other classes that you can take. So my classes tend to be some of the toughest ones. So if you're a bit more of a beginner, don't take my classes. But yeah, so that's going to be coming up. This file that you see in front of you and this one, which has the entire lesson, these two will be available as JPEGs on our Discord. So if you'd like to check out the Discord link, lovely Dario will probably help have that pop in soon. So if you would like to join the Discord, chat with me, chat with some of the others, feel free to do so. You'll be able to download, keep saved, do whatever you want with these posts, with these illustrations. Just don't repost them, and they're all yours. But if you want my working files, so you notice that this one actually has a fair amount of layers in it. So if you would like to check out my working files, you're gonna have to join our Patreon. $2 a month at the minimum. But if you want my working files, it's $5. So if you'd like to check out the at Patreon, support the channel, support the free arts education, so on and so forth, and get my working files and behind the scenes fun stuff, then you're gonna have to join the Patreon. But yeah, y'all. Again, like I mentioned, this is gonna be our last stream for the year. There will be a couple weeks break because next week is Christmas Eve, and then the week after is New Year's Eve. So I'll be taking a couple weeks break from streaming. So I won't be back for a couple weeks. I'll still be in the Discord, obviously, but you know. But yeah. Yeah, so sorry, I don't know what I was gonna say. But yeah, this is gonna be the last stream for the year. There will be more happening next year, but you know, we're taking a couple weeks break just to cool down. But yeah, y'all, thanks so much for joining, and I'll see y'all in a couple weeks time. Bye bye.